So Alfie, the last time we filmed with you was at the estate lake in rural Oxfordshire, but now we're back on your home turf in London, and we're going to talk about some of the river fishing you've done over the last couple of years. Is it fair to say you've never caught so many river carp?
Well, we're in North London, not far from my home and the river that I was fishing, and I would say if you put the amount of fish that I caught over the last sort of 3 summers on the river, because I only focused on short summer window campaigns on there, that there was certainly some carp that hit the bank and some special ones too. I flitted about a little bit, and after I caught the redfish, that was sort of when the summer campaign on the river started. And from previous sort of sessions a couple of years prior, I knew that the area I was targeting was sort of going to be more of a summer campaign than a all year round. I targeted it over the last 3 summers, and it was pretty eventful.
So you earmarked a stretch of river to fish. Was there a particular fish you had in mind that you wanted to catch from there, or was it a complete mystery?
From what I saw, there was definitely plenty of nice carp to catch, and that's what I love fishing for, you know, lovely carp, plenty of them, big and small. There was always rumours of big carp, and fishing for a period of a couple of years, I didn't actually really see anything of great proportions. So it was more just to sort of catch plenty of nice carp, what I like catching, sort of on my own terms, with being left alone a little bit. Like I say, there was rumours of some big uns, and I did see some special fish, but there was never really a target because you could be miles away from them at times. So it was just enjoying my fishing, really.
So what times of the year do you target the rivers?
Throughout the campaign, it was more the summer months. June, July, August, just 3 months of the year. I sort of dabbled on and off over the last 10 years on this stretch, and I narrowed it down to this section being the best for sort of pre-spawning, after spawning. Lots of weed, where the carp like to hide and sit up in the day, and of a night they'd come out and not be too far from my bank with a bait on a spot in an area that I sort of, after doing my homework over the years, I managed to realise that it was safe to fish off the bank at night, because it's not the pleasant of places along the towpath, and I wouldn't be too far from the carp as well. So that's sort of where I based my my pre-baiting campaign and my campaign. But up and down the stretch in the summer months, in that mile of sort of river was always a good starting point.
So does the stock make a big difference to your baiting approach? What was the situation on this stretch?
With the stretch being so long, it was almost the bait being a feature to actually stop the carp. It's full of natural food, the river. It's, like I say, miles long, crystal clear, and really healthy. And it was more so with the amount of carp in there. There's a lot of small carp as well, and a lot of big bream that I kind of wanted, because they haven't been fished for heavily, and not used to big beds of bait, and it was sort of getting them, once they was locked in to that spot, it was sort of become more natural, where carp would be passing, they would naturally feed on that spot, because you can never hold carp on a river. No matter what you do, there's no stopping them travelling up and down. So, like I said, with the river being the way it is and the weed, they'd sort of go in the weed in the day, come out and know that they could come to my spot overnight, not having to pick little shrimp and stuff out the weed. They'd come and find my, my beds of bait, and it'd be nice and easy for them.
So you obviously knew there was fish in this particular area, so you started baiting it. How long were you baiting it for, and what sort of quantities of bait were you putting in before you were seeing fish regularly, seeing fish that you wanted to catch, you know, and were confident enough to fish it?
The baiting sort of started when I'd first noticed that the carp were coming into that area, post-spawning, pre-spawning. And I would start off quite heavily, usually, with stuff like particle, 25 kilos, sort of every 4 days for 3 weeks. And then I'll start mixing in boilies and nuts. And I couldn't see my spot. I was totally relying on the bait to work here. I couldn't bait in the edge because you do get the odd angler walking up and down and the fish would give it away. And I wanted to sort of build up a spot, like I said, a natural spot where I could consistently drop in my free nights and get bites. And I wasn't too far away from where the fish were chilling out, but it was deeper. It was sort of 10 foot, sort of a narrower bit of the river. So I knew fish passing back and through, they had to come over that baited area. And I probably baited for the best part of 9 weeks before I actually fished that spot.
So it sounds like you had the area well primed, mate. How did those first sessions go?
There was always a little bit of anxiety, if you like, leading up to them sessions, thinking, "Cool, I've put a lot of time and even money and effort into baiting this spot. Is it going to pay off?" And I arrived sort of just before dark, and as the sun was setting, and there's so much into why I was fishing this spot, because it was safe, and also I didn't really want to be seen by other anglers, so I only chose to fish on my baited area of a night time, which is a massive part in this film. I arrived and I sort of got the rods out for about 10 o'clock. In the summer, it's sort of just on dark. And I think it was about an hour and a half and nothing had happened. Usually you'd get a few liners, you'd see a couple of fish roll or whatever, and it was really slow, and I was starting to think, is the bait still there? Like, what's going on? Anyway, it got to sort of about 1 o'clock in the morning. It was just incredible. The carp started showing, and I must have seen about 50 shows in a 30-yard stretch of canal right over my baited area. And I caught 3 carp that night. 2 doubles, a common and a mirror, and another small common as well. And that was it. I knew it was working, and it was time to really put a little bit of effort in on that area.
And what were the fish like, mate?
Everyone was different. At first, I didn't actually realise how many small carp were in the stretch, and that became sort of obvious later on during the campaign, but everyone was different. You catch these amazing stunning mirrors, and then you catch one with a dodgy mouth that had come from the valley or something like that, and it was just a total mixed bag, and you just didn't know what was going to come along. On the second trip, which I couldn't wait to get back down there, it was only a couple of days after, I caught a few more carp as well, and it was the first sort of proper one that I managed to catch. A lovely low 20 mirror with an incredible red belly, almost koi-ish like. I'd say there's definitely a little bit in there, but it just showed that like there's some mental ones that are turning up. It's lovely, isn't it? It's getting back. It's getting back. And a lovely little mirror as well, a tiny little scaly dark one that was, yeah, just incredible too. So yeah, certainly a mixed bag.
Sounds like the swim was rocking then, Alf. Did you sort of concentrate all your efforts on that one spot, or were you mixing it up a bit?
Throughout the summer and that sort of first year on the river, I was so busy, I had so much going on. I was sorting out my own business and stuff like that. So that's mainly why I was baiting that spot, because I only had time of a night to go and fish. But occasionally I would have a bit of free time in the day, and I'd spend that down the river, walking up and down the stretch, and I would find carp. And when I did find fish, or trickle a little bit of bait in here and there, have a walk with a mate, I'd fish for them, and I got lucky a few times too and caught some that way. So it wasn't all about the baited spot, and you could always be miles away from fish either way. So when I had the time, I'd have a little walk and sight fish for them.
So on a long stretch of river like that, obviously you wanted to keep tabs on it because the fish could be so mobile. How were you getting about?
With it being quite a long stretch and parking restrictions pretty bad, I'd have to always find a pen display or somewhere, and it was always too far really to be walking up and down. So I was using my electric scooter most of the time, and a little rucksack, rods or a little bit of bait, Polaroids, and I'd just sort of keep tabs on the stretch and sort of try and locate them when I had the free time in the day that way.
The fish look fantastic, mate, but it sounds like you were having to plough through quite a lot of small ones, and eventually, you know, a better one would turn up. What was the first one that got you really fired up?
There was plenty of carp that I was catching, and a lot of small ones, like I said, more than what I actually bargained for, if you like. I'll be catching 3 or 4, 2 or 3, even like most trips, you know, little carp so small that you could almost lift them out of the river without a net, swing them in. And it really opened my eyes to how many was in there, and it made sense why heavy quantities of bait was being eaten. But I did manage a really lovely old mirror, incredible mint, huge scales, and that was the first one that I was sort of like, wow, like there's some serious gems to be had in and amongst these smaller fish. Well, so many small fish, but you just never know what you're going to catch out this river. Absolute beauty. Even took the bloody rod in at like 4 in the morning and had to fish for the line to get him back. Luckily I got the rod back and he was still on the end. But I'm going to get him back and head home now. So 3 fish last night. Hopefully them big ones ain't far away.
So it sounds like you're enjoying it then, Alf. What were some of the standout fish?
That summer there was so many. In the end, I kind of lost count of the amount of nice ones that I actually caught. It was like clockwork. Every session I was catching regular 4 or 5 fish a trip, but some real beautiful ones did slip up. I had levers, a lovely big scaly mirrors, some character commons with little twisted mouths. You just didn't know what was going to come along. Look at that. You just never know what you're going to catch in the river. Pucker roll fish. Let's get him back. Along with all them small ones too, thrown in, so there was plenty of action. I had a few blanks as well, quiet nights. I might have had one little one, and with it being the river, there's always fish moving through, so I'd keep the bait going in, and it'd go quiet for a couple of trips, and then you'd have like 3 nice doubles and a 20, and I remember it went quiet for a little period after catching quite a lot, and I was thinking, is the spot drying up? And then it wasn't until the whole night of blanking, and there was carp showing on my spot, that at around 6 in the morning, I had, I think, 5 mirrors. Beautiful little carp. Jack actually come down and filmed them with an upper 20 and a couple of scraper 20s. They're beautiful carp. And all happened in an hour, literally, it just went mental. Well, seems like a little bit of a reoccurring act, lifting these sacks out. But last night was pretty productive, just like most of the nights lately. And biggest one so far looks like an old reservoir fish, lake escapee or something, but it's a river carp all the same. And it's beautiful, so I'll get him out and have a little look. Every trip was different, and there was plenty of nice ones, and I was happy for. It might have only been around 20 nights that I done that summer, so yeah, over 50 bites in that short period of time. It was definitely action-packed with a lot of beautiful ones thrown in.
So moving into 2021, Alf, when you went back onto the river in the summer, was it business as usual?
I had a few little targets in and around before I started my river campaign. I used to always like to see the carp in that section before I actually started to fish my spot, but I'd always be trickling little bits of bait in, you know. I was after a big mirror. I caught that one on a worm, and we done a short video on that. And I was baiting throughout fishing that lake, so I was preparing the river for the summer. And yeah, sort of as usual, like clockwork, the carp turned up, and I managed to stalk a couple up and down the towpath. A lovely linear as well. That was a nice one, and flitted about up and down the section, and eventually come to do a few sessions on my baited area.
So I guess, like, especially in the previous year, with the amount of smaller fish you were catching off the baited spot, you resorted to more of a stalking approach to try and single out the mythical monsters.
That second sort of summer on the river, I kind of felt that on my baited area, because it had seen so much bait and plenty of action as well, that if one of these mythical monsters, like you say, was to have been in the area, I would have been confident that I would have caught it. I hadn't have lost anything that felt big or powerful, so my only other option was to visually try and stalk a bigger fish than what I'd caught on the towpath. And I love my stalking, and that's generally how I target my big carp that I have caught in the past. You don't see them very often, but when you do see the better fish, you've got to have a go for them. And it opened my eyes to, yeah, when I was fishing in the edge, that they actually was quite cute at times. But I managed some fishing like that, and I had some great fishing that second summer. Just nipped down to the river, and like it always happens pre-spawning, they turn up in this area, and had this lovely little lin. Actually had about 3 bites today, but a few smaller ones. My mate had one. But I'll get him back. There's a few people having a look. No, of course, it's fine.
Awesome, good job.
Thank you.
So obviously you're fishing for wild, unpressured carp, Alf. So I guess your setup was quite simple, was it?
Yeah, I thought I don't have to go too complicated when fishing for these fish. There wasn't super riggy or pressured in any way, shape or form like that. So I just knew my spots were hard, and I was fishing standard bottom baits about 7 inches with our cryogen pattern hooks, and just simple leg clip setups. And yeah, that was working wonders. I think I didn't lose many, and out of the handful that I did lose were all really small ones, like that kind of at the net, you know. And yeah, it just worked, nice and simple and effective.
So in that second year, Alf, I understand you got access to a boat on the same stretch. Tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, my friend, who's also a carp angler, he had a cruiser type houseboat on the stretch, and he had moved it from the canal onto that stretch of river, and it was probably half a mile away from where I actually used to target the carp, and it was stationary. So I'd done a little bit of a baiting campaign off of it, and done a couple of nights, and it didn't pay off. I put a little bit of bait in the edge as well, and there was a bit of colour in the river, because we had a little bit of rain that sort of summer. And when I looked, the bait was still there, like 6 weeks later. And with the amount of little carp and carp in there, I just thought, there's something with the spot that I had been baiting that it just worked. They just liked being there and feeding there, and the heavy baiting didn't just work anywhere on that stretch. So that was a big eye-opener. As well as the big cruiser boat that was stationary, we also had a little Shetland fishing boat, and that was quite cool. We could sort of go up and down the stretch, and you could go from lock to lock, which is probably like 4 or 5 miles in 45 minutes. You can't go too fast on the river, but you could cover a lot of water and drop in and try and locate the fish. And it was more sort of a comfortability thing. You could actually get a night's sleep on the boat, and it was comfortable, a bit warmer. You wouldn't be getting bit by the mozzies and stuff like that. And I managed to catch a few carp off of the boat. The old river ghosty. Still a result, a couple of bites last night. He's actually bigger than what he looks in the water. Let's get him back, eh? Not loads. At times I think it would hinder you a little bit, because it was even a little bit too big for certain areas, a 16-foot fishing boat. But I certainly enjoyed it, and I think on the right river it would be the total way to go. But I caught more probably off the towpath than I did the boat that summer. You just never know where they've come from, to be fair. I think I caught this a few stretches up a few years ago, but I'll have to have a look at the photos and see.
So with your different approach in 2021, Alf, it sounded like you caught a lot less small ones, but did you manage to single out any of the big ones?
I think the main reason for not catching as many is I was focusing more time on actually visually trying to catch one of these mythical monsters. It's lovely catching a lot of carp, and it's lovely catching especially the amount of nice ones that I did catch that first summer. But occasionally you do want to catch a big one. I didn't catch anything over 30 pound, and not that I'm complaining, but it's nice to catch something of a bit of proportion from time to time. And there's a few in there. There's not many, there's not loads, but there certainly were a few bigger carp than what I'd already caught. So I focused more of my time stalking and less time fishing the baited area. Like I said, I feel one should have turned up already. But one morning, I did manage to catch a special one, and a carp over 30 pound, which was incredible. And after seeing a few in the area, that's when I decided to fish my baited spot. And my knees certainly did knock when that popped up in the morning. I thought, cool, is this the one? And yeah, it was something a lot larger than what I had been catching, and an epic fish, a proper epic fish. Well, this is a proper showstopper, this one. 30 pounder. And well worthy of some lovely footage. Mega canal carp. He's an angry old boy. Nearly hoofed me out of the boat.
Well, a 30-pound river mirror is a really special fish, isn't it, Alf? And it was, I guess, a nice climax to the campaign. What are your plans next?
I'm absolutely buzzing with that capture. You know, after spending the last few summers fishing the river, catching plenty of lovely carp, it was the icing on the cake, really. I felt like I did deserve to catch one over 30 pound, and a lot of people will argue a 30-pound river carp is very special. Often they'd take that over a lake 40, you know. It kind of dwelled on me a little bit that with my efforts and my baiting, that would any of these mysterious giants turn up, and in fact they could be 5 miles away from me at times, and I'd wake up in the morning and think, well, that big one that I see last week might be in the Thames now. You just don't know. So it kind of was doing the full circle, my angling, and I was starting to get the bug for bigger carp, and I was thinking that maybe I'd look towards fishing somewhere else and targeting a few bigger special carp somewhere else. The aim for me was to enjoy my fishing over the couple of summers coming out of lockdown and getting back on the bank. It was amazing. Caught loads of beautiful carp and filled my boots, really. It was the aim to catch lots of wild fish, enjoy my fishing, be left alone, and that's what happened. I couldn't have asked for more. And like I said, it's nice for a big one to turn up, and with angling just getting busier in general, the whole urban London scene just being very busy, I noticed in the mornings if I would stay too late, you'd get anglers turn up, and I got seen a few times, and I just started to think, how long have I got left of this quiet fishing? I didn't think there was too much left, so I kind of pulled away from it, sort of sewn up and happy, wiped my hands with what I caught, and my fishing's done a full circle now. Sometimes you think if you can't be left alone and I can't beat them, I join them. So I've been doing a little bit of fishing on busier venues as of recent, and targeting bigger, well-known carp.
I'm gonna I'll call you back.